Welcome back, viewers. You are still tuned into Prime Live. Now, you might be aware of all the drama, all the tragedy that is happening on social media and on media platforms, and the words "go to hell." That is the message that the EFF leader Julius Malema has for the world's richest man and owner of Tesla, Starlink, and X, Elon Musk. Now, the latest spat between the two men surfaced this weekend when Musk called for Julius Malema to be declared an international criminal for his statements about redressing the inequalities of South Africa's past. Now, Malema and Musk have clashed before, but the latest war has led to a tense standoff between South Africa and the Trump administration because he now has the ear of the US president. We are joined this evening by Commissar Mazwi Blose, who is the EFF member of the National Assembly, and he joins me now to unpack what is at stake here. Good evening, Commissar. Thank you so much for joining us on Prime Live.
No, thank you. Thank you for having us, and good evening to all your listeners.
Now, it's a privilege for us to be able to sit down and have this conversation with you, particularly because all our viewers at home are, of course, very well aware of the back and forth between leader Julius Malema as well as Elon Musk. And what I want to start off our conversation this evening with is that for the first time, we are now seeing that Elon Musk has clashed with leader Julius Malema. Now, in the past, he has accused the EFF of inciting a white genocide. Can you please comment on this?
Look, Elon Musk has clearly used his, riches to go and capture the White Office in America with his close relationships now with Trump. And he's now trying to use that influence that he has in America to then, influence his own perceptions on South Africa and to try and influence the world regarding his own misinformation in terms of what is happening in South Africa. So the issue that the EFF has been inciting violence and inciting white farmers and white genocide has been ventilated in court because it stems from the fact that EFF used to sing the "Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer" song. And that thing was ventilated in court, and the court found in favor of the EFF that this was just a generational mission. When we say kill the farmer, kill the poor, we don't necessarily mean that we must kill white people, but we are referring to a system of oppression that was there during the time of land repossessions in 1652. So we are not the inventors of the struggle. We are just taking the struggle forward. And these songs that we are singing were there even before our time, and the court has found in our favor. So if Elon is misinformed, he must go and look at the court records, and then they will tell him exactly the context of the EFF positions on these issues.
Thank you for clarifying that. I mean, we are seeing Elon Musk taking a very big stance in terms of trying to influence the newly elected US President Donald Trump. He's definitely whispering a lot of messages on what he perceives is happening in South Africa, which can be incredibly problematic considering that he doesn't live in South Africa. But thank you for clarifying that. What I also want to talk about is, in light of this back and forth that has been taking place, Elon Musk has clearly been misled in terms of the information that he is feeding to Donald Trump. And when I talk about that here at home, there are some white people who are going around, or white residents of South Africa who are going around, or rather afraid of a system that might be looking to get rid of them. What do you think is behind all this paranoia that they are experiencing? Where do you think all this paranoia is coming from?
Well, there are quite a few things, really. One is the radical posture of the EFF to expropriate land without compensation, which many would have thought that it was a call by the EFF that would die out eventually. But they can see that it's gaining momentum and it's finding expression in all corners of South Africa. And a lot of other parties, including black parties in parliaments, are now starting to understand the message of the EFF. So those who fear equality in South Africa are now, trying to engage in Swat Ghafar tactics, fear mongering, to mobilize the global community against, land grabs that are not in existence in the country. And while the call of the EFF is very simple, is that we must go constitutionally and amend Section 25 of the Constitution to allow for land expropriation without compensation. So that call by the EFF is gaining momentum. It's not dying down, and people are really crying
Apologies, viewers at home. We seem to have lost Commissar. But as we were talking about just now, we are, of course, discussing the difficulties, or rather the back and forth between leader Julius Malema as well as Elon Musk. And we have seen Elon Musk repeatedly, whispering influences to Donald Trump when it comes to South Africa. There has also been a lot of conversation in the media about how South Africa is now the new target of US aggression. South Africa is now the new target of bullying tactics or even possible sanctions from the United States. But do stay tuned for our conversation. Do stay informed. We are going to try and get Commissar back online so that he can continue on with this conversation. Commissar, sorry about that. We did lose you for a second there. But as you were saying, you were addressing some of the paranoia that white South African residents may be experiencing, or this sense of fear they might be experiencing, and where you think that paranoia and fear might be coming from.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. Look, as I was saying, that the fear is really a fundraising exercise by especially AfriForum, who are seeking to mobilize the national community against the radical posture of the EFF to expropriate land without compensation. So they make the global community to fear that there are land grabs and that there are white people being chased out of their land and that there's white genocide in the country, so that the white community can mobilize against South Africa and put sanctions on South Africa so that we can do away with our radical posture to call for land expropriation without compensation. So this is not new. Even during the apartheid era, such swart kafar tactics were used against those who were calling for the end of racism, for the end of apartheid in South Africa. So it's nothing new for us. And we are saying this time around, those tactics are not going to work. But secondly to that, you will remember that in the sixth administration, Parliament took a resolution to do away with the Israel embassy in South Africa on the posture of them being genocidal towards Palestine. We have also taken Israel to the International Court of Justice for them to go and answer against their crimes against humanity on the people of Palestine. So all of that combined together then is not a good posture for these white racists who wants to see South Africa taking, a white capitalist position against the people of Palestine. So now they're mobilizing the global South, and they're mobilizing the global community to come and rein in on South Africa and to try and sanction those who seem to be pushing for the left radical policies. And this time it's not going to work.
That's a very interesting observation. If we look at all the kinds of information that has been shared about South Africa on an international basis, like you said, with Donald Trump threatening sanctions, with Donald Trump saying that he's offering free refugee status to anyone in South Africa, any white person in South Africa who feels unsafe. These are a lot of very dangerous tactics and dangerous misinformation that is being shared on a global basis by President Trump. And the difficulty with this is, of course, it affects how South Africa looks to the international community. But what we have seen is that President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for Elon Musk to come and basically meet with him to discuss the spreading of all this misinformation that has been shared. And I want to also talk about why it's so important for this meeting to take place and what you feel should be done in order to stop people sabotaging South Africa and sabotaging our image in the international community.
No, look, to start basically on the call for Trump to give refugee status to the white Afrikaners in South Africa who feel that there's white genocide. I mean, I think it's about 3 days now since the executive order has been signed, but not a single Afrikaner has left South Africa because they know that it is a lie, and none of them are going to do away with the privileges of South Africa and go and be landless hobos in America. They are not going to do it. The privileges that they have in this country far succeed anything they can have anyway, including their privileges of being able to speak Afrikaans. Because if they go to America, they are going to have to do away, even including with their language. All these hectares of land that they are owning in this country is no longer going to exist. So it's just scaremongering. Not a single Afrikaner is going to leave South Africa because there is no white genocide here. There's no killing of farmers. There is nothing of that. Also, I don't understand why would Cyril want to go and engage a non-entity like Elon Musk. If there are serious sanctions that are being possessed by South Africa on America, then state to state, Ramaphosa should be going to engaging with Donald Trump and speak to him regarding these unfounded mysteries that he is possessing sanctions on South Africa. But over and above that, I think South Africa needs to do away with this thing of wanting to be dependent or to be a stepchildren of America. We must be able to possess our own minerals and make sure that whatever that America possesses on us, but we are able to retain and sustain ourselves as a country and not be dependent on America. Because even if you look at these sanctions, they go for the US aid. And in their small minds, they think that they are punishing Black people who are highly affected by the HIV and AIDS. But they speak nothing about AGOA, and they speak nothing about these policies that seeks to make South Africa dependent on them, where we are exporting raw materials at a very cheap rate, but then we import finished products at very high rates. So those are the fundamentals that South Africa needs to look at in order for them to be able to make sure that we are independent as a country and we are not reliant on USA and all these other global countries.
Absolutely. I think that was a very important point you mentioned there, is that we are so rich in resources. We need to learn to be able to depend on ourselves instead of importing the raw material, exporting the raw materials and then buying it back at double the price. But thank you for sharing your thoughts on that with us. But in closing, before we actually let you go, I want to talk more about the land issue. Now, it is something that has been championed by the EFF for a very, very long time. Now, what I want to talk about is, are you keen, or are you surprised, or do you feel it's successful at the rate, or the pace rather, of land reform in South Africa in the last 30 years since the beginning of our democracy?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, and this is why the EFF has been calling for the repeal of the Constitution in terms of Section 25 to allow for expropriation of land without compensation, because the rates in which the willing buyer and willing seller has been going has been very, very slow. And by the rate we are going, you can see that we will never be able to return the land for the beneficiation of our people. Even the current expropriation act that has been signed by Ramaphosa, even now, as the EFF, we don't support it because it really doesn't go deep down and speak to the real issues of land. So again, as the EFF, we are going to be retabling this motion in Parliament, because this motion went out to the public. Our people went in and spoke and said that they want land expropriation without compensation. So these sort of technicalities of need compensation and everything else is not what our people said. So we are going to fight for this in Parliament to make sure that there is explicit constitutional amendment that there must be land expropriation without compensation, so that the state is allowed to be the custodian of the land, and then we are able to use the state to take the land back to the rightful owners for the beneficiation of our people. Not that single white minorities in the country own millions and millions of hectares of land without our people even having access to houses, even having access for them to have businesses for themselves. So we are going to be retabling this matter in Parliament and make sure that the Constitution is written in a way that will allow South Africa to expropriate land without compensation.
Commissar Blose, thank you so much for joining us this evening and for sharing your insight, your observations, as well as your thoughts with us this evening. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Viewers at home, that was Commissar Blose from the EFF. We discussed, yes, of course, the issue that has been taking place between EFF leader Julius Malema, as well as the back and forth that has been taking place between him as well as Elon Musk. Now, we know that if you've been following the story on social media, Elon Musk has been having a lot of opinions and a lot of influence when it comes to Donald Trump's perception of South Africa. There is also a lot of misinformation that is being shared. There's threats of sanctions, but do stay tuned for all information as well as updates on anything and everything when it comes to the Donald Trump administration, as well as the threats of sanctions against South Africa. But do stay tuned for more. Viewers at home. We have so much more coming up on the show for you. Do stay tuned, and we'll see you after the ad break.